Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new, excuse me, Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be talking about patch 3.2.5, which is the new patch for the new DLC. It's finally here, Clockwork City. It's been 5 weeks in testing. A lot of us have gone through this thing with a fine-tooth comb, at least tried to, and tried to get everything, like checked out, make sure it was working, all that kind of stuff, and I'm excited it's here. There is a lot of new cool stuff with this DLC that's not going to change the game, but it's going to add some new elements to the game, which is really cool. First off, as it says, we're getting a new 12-man trial, as you can see right here, the Asylum Sanctorium. We are getting 2 new delves and 2 world bosses with this update. They've also added 12 new item sets, 2 new motives, actually 4 new motives, they should have said that, over 200 new furnishings, and a host of new fun and collectibles. So lots of fun stuff. The new transmutation system is in this as well, which is great because now we'll be able to change those traits on those annoying items you get in dungeons and trials that are not traded to the perfect trait that we want. We'll be able to retrait those. I will say this about the transmutation system. It's not a complicated system to use, and it really does allow for some interesting, it's an interesting thing, but it's still going to be a little bit of a grind. Not going to lie about that. The approximate size of this update is 3.6 gigs. Ouch, but hey, that's cool. And we get of course, all this fun and exciting stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at the patch notes. We're going to kind of skim through some of this. I don't want to reveal too much. So the Brass Fortress is going and this is the new area in the Clockwork City. This is the actual Clockwork City area. Excuse me. Really cool area in the game. It's going to add new stuff. I'll just say that, like a new look. It's going to be nice. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of people hanging out here and everything. 2 new world bosses. The Sanctuary of the Verification Sothasil is, one of his things, and the Extracts. Agris. This is a really kind of a cool one. This is a Daedric boss, and then this is a fabrication. This is one of Sothasil's creations, and we get to fight him. This one is not too difficult, but not one that you're going to be able to solo right away. You got to learn the mechanics first. This one is going to be is a little bit tedious because it's 3 mobs instead of 1, but still really fun. The 2 new delves are the Halls of Regulation and the Shadow Cleft. Both of them are really, really cool delves. I like the Shadow Cleft, but I like the Halls of Regulation better. They also have repeatable bounties in the city. The Clockwork Facilitator and Novice Holy, both residing in the eastern portion of the Brass Fortress, each offer daily bounties to investigate and overcome dangers at these locations. I'm sorry I'm coughing in your guys' ear. I really am. I'm trying not to, but I'm still kind of getting over this. I don't know if it's a chest cold or what it is, but it's like really it got really embedded in there. I was just coughing like crazy all the time. So I like trying to suck on like a cough drop before I'd record for this. But I can't do cough drops really well, so new sites to explore. The Everwound Wellspring. This is where they create the food and stuff for the apostles in the Clockwork City, and so this is going to be an interesting quest hub. And then the Mnemonic Plainsphere. This is another quest hub area. And these are just like, these aren't repeatable quests, I don't think. I think there's just like one quest there, but there's some really interesting lore in them, and it'll be pretty cool to watch people's thoughts on them. The new trial, the Asylum Sanctorium, this is by far one of the cooler trials that they've added to the game. Now, I'm not a fan of trials by any means, mainly because I've already done that in my career of gaming, but I still like to do trials from time to time, and this one definitely has its appeal. I don't really care for doing it on the hardest of hard modes because it's just too hard. But I do like doing it the other way, where you fight the 3 bosses separately. That's a really fun thing, and even on Vet and even normal and Vet mode, it's really exciting. So, Asylum Sanctorium is a 12-man trial. Like I said, there's a normal and a veteran version, and then of course there's also new skill augmenting things in here. The asylum weapons. That's going to be pretty cool. And they work the same as Master and Maelstrom. If you guys haven't seen my update videos to the Clockwork City prior to these things are really cool. Unique achievements, rewards, and stuff. Unique skins, several traits, or several titles, and then unique housing items are found inside the Asylum Sanctorium. Asylum and perfect weapons. These are the new things that are getting added with this trial. They're really interesting weapons, I'll say that much. Some are going to be definitely like, you know, they're going to be good for certain builds, but they're not going to be perfect for every build. So, kind of nice. The Asylum Sanctorium itemization. You can obtain rewards based on not only the trial's difficulty, but also on how many allies the boss St. Olms has with him. So the more allies he has, the greater chance you have of getting either an asylum or a perfect asylum weapon. So you get normal asylum weapons by completing it on normal mode or veteran mode. And it doesn't matter how you complete it, you always get an asylum weapon. The hardest of hard modes is basically you have to fight St. Olms and his two allies at the same time, and both of them are really, really hard. So, it's a really cool thing, though. It even says right here, defeating St. Olms on his lonesome will award you a blue quality normal asylum weapon or a purple quality veteran asylum weapon. So, and how to get perfect, it explains that in here. But we're going to go ahead and bypass the rest of that. New collectibles, lots of new collectibles. New item sets, guys. This is the exciting stuff. We're getting 12 new item sets available in this. 3 of the sets are craftable, 3 of the sets are dropped, and the rest is stuff that comes out of the Asylum Sanctorium, and those are the Asylum weapons. We're going to go over each of those real quick. So, starting with the Innate and Axiom. Really good set. Now, a lot of people think that when you say, hey, this is more of a hybridized set, it is, but it can be used as a single like boost to like a Magicka build or a Stamina build. It just depends. But it can be used as a hybrid piece. It is really nice when you can capitalize on that hybridization of this, especially if you run it like a Stamina build running Magicka, or run a Magicka build with some Stamina class abilities or Stamina abilities on the side. This thing can really Stamina class abilities on the side. It can really stand out, and it's a really good set for that, but you have to know what you're doing. But it's a really cool set. Fortified Brass. This is a new kind of tank set. This is like an insane set too, because it gives you max health. It gives you 2,000 something physical and spell resistance, almost 3k in those, and then on top of that, it gives you another 5k spell and physical with the 5-piece. This is an absurd set. Like, literally, absurdly overpowered resistance set. And will probably take the place of things like Armor Master and other sets like that. Because you don't have to cast anything, you don't have to use anything, you just get an absurd amount of resistances. It's like wearing heavy armor and light armor. I mean, it's crazy. Mechanical Acuity. This is a really interesting set. Gives you weapon damage, spell damage. Gives you Stamina and Magicka. Another somewhat, and it's not really, I will say, not somewhat hybridized, but it is one that you could use for a hybrid build. Still, you could garner it towards, just like you did with, Twice Worn Star and, those others. You're just going to get extra spell and weapon damage. It doesn't matter. When you deal damage, you have a 15% chance of gain unerring mechanical vision for 5 seconds, causing your attacks to always be a critical strike. This effect can occur once every 18 seconds. Really good set, except for that 18-second cooldown. Can play a lot on your build. If you don't have it built around this being part of it, it's kind of a wasted set. But it is a good set, don't get me wrong. Moving on, these are the drop set. We have the Mad Tinker. Has 1 spell crit, 2 spell crit, and spell damage. And in the 5 pieces, when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to summon a Verminous Fabricant that charges the nearest enemy, dealing 10,000 shock damage to all enemies in its path, knocking them into the air, and stunning them for 2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. This is a great set for, people getting into dungeons. This will be a good set for that. It's just a really fun set too, but it's going to be a really great set to get for Magicka players to get into dungeons or even for those people who don't do Dungeons and Trials, to have a set that they can use that's very similar to like Julianus or something like that, but they can't craft Julianus because they might not have the DLC, or they just don't, they're solo players. Really good set for that. Next up, Unfathomable Darkness. This is a weapon critical, physical pin, weapon damage. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to summon, to call a murder of crows around you for 12 seconds. Every 3 seconds, a crow will be sent to peck at the closest enemy and within 12 meters of you, dealing 4,000 physical damage. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. Really, really powerful set. But if you run this with a monster set, you have to play the hey, which one's gonna proc first, and then how long do we have to wait for cooldown? Now this has a 15-second cooldown, but I can tell you every time it goes off, it goes off. It's crazy. It's like constant uptime almost with a 3-second cooldown basically. But a really good set still nonetheless. Next up is Livewire. This is more of a tank set. As you can see, it applies healing taken, extra health, healing taken, and then when you take damage, you have a 25% chance to overload your circuits, applying concussion to enemies within 8 meters of you, healing for 1,000 health for each enemy hit. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. Really good that they changed this in PTS from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, but still, you have a 4-second window where you don't have the concussed effect applied, and it's still better to create a build that has, an infused weapon with a shock enchant, or running a charged weapon with a shock enchant or something, just to get that concussed apply, and it also sets the enemies off balance. This doesn't set the enemies balance, it just gives them the concussed effect, which applies minor vulnerability. Still a good set. Moving on, we have Asylum Sanctorium Weapons. These drop in Perfect and for Veteran difficulty. Only on the hardest difficulty can you get that. That means you have to fight Signomes and his 2 enemies. And in normal version, normal ones drop. So you cannot combine the 2 sets. So you can't wear a Perfect and an Imperfect and get the bonus. You actually have to wear both Perfect or both Imperfect to get the bonuses. And this goes for Master and Maelstrom. Like, you can't mix Master with Maelstrom anymore because they're considered sets now. Any dual wield or sword and board, you have to have one of each. So you have to have a sword and shield for the sword and board. Dual wield, you have to have 2 dual wield weapons. Really, really cool though. Alright, starting with Perfect, the Perfected Chaotic Whirlwind. Sorry guys, my nose has just started gushing. I'm trying to stop from like sniffling. When you deal damage with Whirlwind, you add 12 seconds to your active Twin Slashes, Lacerate, and Blade Cloak over time effects. This effect can occur once per cast of those abilities. It makes for a really interesting uptime of Twin Slash, Lacerate, and Blade Cloak, but other than that, it's not really like great. But it could be really, good for somebody who wants to play a really aggressive heavy attack or light attack build. So they can apply these, just leave them running, and they can just do a lot of heavy attacks and things like that while using their bow or what have you. But yeah, it's a really interesting set, and you really have to play with it to really get it the use of it down. But if you're not as good at rotations, this might be a better set for you. Moving on, Consecrated Force. This is the Destruction Staff. Every second you cast a Force Shock, you will always apply Burning, Concussed, and Chilled status effects. The Force Shock cast must be made within 10 seconds of each other for this effect can occur. So this has a 10-second apply effect. So it will apply Burning, Concussed, and Chilled. And that's on this one, the Perfected one. This, for some reason, they got these worded wrong. But this one, I think, is 12 seconds. Because it's been a while since I've read these, like a week, since I did this change. But I think this is 12 seconds, honestly. But yeah, they're a really powerful thing. And you have to... so this one on every second cast, and this one on every third cast. So you have to cast 3 Force Shocks to get it to apply. This one you have to cast Force Shock twice to get it to apply. And that's to make it so it's not being overly used, which is a good idea, because I mean this thing was too OP to begin with. Defensive position, this is sword and board. When you reflect or absorb a spell projectile with defensive posture, it should say whenever you use defensive posture, you get 2,000 magicka. Like, that would have been easy. But so basically how this works is when you cast defensive posture on yourself from the sword and board ability line, you get a magic damage shield. And it just absorbs magic. Well, what happens is when it absorbs that magic, it gives you 2,000 magic. If it doesn't absorb any magic, it will restore 5,000 magicka, but it's like over 30 seconds. So you got to wait for the timer to wear off in this ability. The perfected one is not very much stronger than the imperfect one, as you can see. One does 2,000 and 5,000, one does 18, and 45. A lot of these aren't off by much, to be honest. Like, the perfected ones just give you that just tiny bit of better, while the imperfect ones are just, they're like, hey, they're still as good. When you did a damage with a reverse slice, you generate up to 15 ultimate. This is the two-handed, by the way, discipline slash. This is the two-handed weapon. So when you do damage with a reverse slice, you generate up to 15 ultimate based on how much execute bonus damage you do. Now, this is the really important part here, is this execute damage. You have to be in execute. That means starting at 49%, not 50, 49% and below, you'll start generating ultimate. You'll only get one ultimate for every 5%. So 50% going down. And it's kind of weird. Like, at between 49 and 45, you only get one. From 45 to 42, 45 to 50, or whatever, you get, well, you know what I mean. So you're getting like so many points per area. So like one, you're getting 1 to 2. The next one, you're getting 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12, 13 to 14, whatever. And it's only when you get them down to below the last 5% that you get the 15 ultimate. Sorry, had to clear my nose. But yeah, really powerful, but only in the execute area. So it's going to be a really good one for PvP, not so good for PvE. And that's because you just don't get to the ultimate range, like that ultimate range, right away on bosses, or even a lot of trash mobs, because a lot of trash in trials, or even dungeons, you have the elite mobs in there, and they have just greater health. So trying to get them there can take a while. So these are, but they're really good. I do like these discipline ones. The next one is piercing spray. This is the bow, and when you deal damage with arrow spray, you cause the enemy to take 50% more damage from direct damage portions of your next snipe, scatter shot, or poison arrow used within 6 seconds. Very powerful. Like, this is very powerful, but at the same time, it's not too OP, because you have to use it within 6 seconds. And not a lot of people use scatter shot or snipe, except for in like open world play or maybe PvP scatter shot. But poison arrow gets used a lot. Everyone thinks sorry, I think that's funny. So these are really good. These are some really good sets, but they're not perfect. So really good. Timeless Blessing. When you cast Blessing and Protection, the cost of your magicka and stamina healing abilities are reduced by 30% for 3 seconds. I hate to say this. This is like the best one. Like, Timeless Blessing, the resto staff, is like the best of these things. Like, literally. Like, everyone thought the Maelstrom, the staff, the Destruction staff was going to be really good. This one just sets it apart. Like, this is like the best healing staff, in my opinion, in the game. I've used the Master Staff for a little bit on PTS, and I thought it was really good until I saw what they made the adjustments to this to do. And this is just insane. Like, within 3 seconds, I can cast 3 abilities in 3 seconds. So I can cast Healing Springs, and so, but you have to cast Blessing and Protection first to get that 30% reduced cost on any of your heals. So anything does a heal, that means including that high-end purge, gets reduced by 30%. So it's pretty powerful. It's really good. I like that. Now, they did make some adjustments to it to where it only affects Magicka and Stamina abilities. So it has to be a Magic or Stamina ability. It does not work now with the new heal on the Nightblade, and I'll get to that in a minute. There is a new target nummy you can earn in the game. It is called the Precursor. It is one that requires you to do a job board mission and then to farm out the items in the area. So, pretty cool. Like, I mean, it's up to whoever wants it. 2 new motives. We have the Apostle style and the Ebon Shadow. These are 2 new motives that you can earn. And you earn these by doing those daily quests in the Clockwork City that they were talked about above. So in those bounties, you got to do these. Over 200 new furnishings added to the game. And let me tell you, these things drop like wildfire. New achievements. There's over 40 new achievements. 6 titles and to unlock in the new Clockwork City DLC. Let's go on. These are updates to the existing game. So we're getting a new battleground. It's called Crazy King. It's cool. It's fun, but it's not. It's just like whatever. You know, to me, it's not that great. Horns of the Reach. 2 new motives are being added to the Horns of the Reach as well. The Dead Horn style and the Bloodford style. So these are the styles of the armor that drops in there. You can actually get the motives now. So these will drop in those 2 new dungeons from Horns of the Reach. Moving on, new base game update, transmutation system. So it explains here what the transmutation system is. It basically allows you to retrain a trait on any armor or weapon. It does not do jewelry, just armor and weapons. And this is any armor or weapon in the game. So this includes even training gear that we get on the starter islands can be retraded into the respective traits you might want. This means trial sets, this means monster sets, this means weapons sets. The Master Maelstrom and Asylum can all be retraded. All this stuff can be retraded. And that is really, really awesome. It explains here the transmutation crystals drop in veteran PvE abilities or activities such as pledges, trials, arenas, and PvP sources such as Rewards of the Worthy, Battleground, and Match Rewards, and the end of the campaigns. Transmutation crystals are account-wide, but they don't mention here is how many you get per activity, and where that the fact that you can get bonus crystals by dungeon bosses, but only in veteran mode. They don't seem to drop on normal mode, but they do drop on veteran mode. If they do drop on normal mode, it must be a really, really high, really hard drop rate to get it. On veteran mode, you have a chance of getting what's called a uncracked, or something like that, transmutation crystal, and it can give you like 4, up to 4. So you can actually earn, in about a week's time, playing just daily pledges, you can probably earn enough to get you 1 piece, maybe in 2 weeks. It depends on the RNGs. I'm going to be honest. RNG on whether or not you get it. But yeah, it's not too bad. Trait tracker, this is a new thing they added to the game. This basically says what traits you have. And if a trait's been changed, if you can research it, if it's ornate, insert it, you get the idea. So the really cool thing there. Performance updates. This is really cool. So what they did was they did a major performance update for this system. They overhauled how the client handles animations, significantly reducing memory requirements. Additionally, we made significant optimizations to the scene graph. Together, these 2 additions have resulted in significant gains in frame rate and improved the load times into areas with many characters and buildings, including Cyrodiil. This is awesome because you do see the difference. It's pretty crazy. Alright, crafting turn-in site universalization. They basically made it to where there's just like a universal turn-in for all crafting writs. Like you can turn in crafting writs at any writ turn-in site throughout the game world, regardless of crafting rank. That's good. I'm glad they did that. New house has been added. This is called the Observatory Prior Home. It is in the Clockwork City area. You do not have to. I don't think you have to own the Clockwork City, but you might to get it. It's a really cool, like it says here. It's on a mountaintop overlooking the land. It's really, really neat. Champion points are increased again by 30 points. So a total of 690 points is what we can get. This will be interesting. Right, moving on. New improvements to Morrowind. The biggest ones are going to be the Warden. Excuse me, guys. And that is the Animal Companion. Deceptive Predator. This is the Falcon Swiftness morph. This morph now increases the duration to 14 seconds in addition to granting minor evasion. This is a 5-second or a 5% dodge chance, and it does stack with evasion. So from like the medium armor line or even the Nightblade. But you're not a Nightblade, so. But it does stack with that, so you can get 20% out of it. Really, really cool too. Feral Guardian. Activating the Guardian's Wrath or Guardian Savagery ability will now grant your bear a snare immunization or immobilization and crowd control immunity for 8 seconds. That's really powerful. So whenever you're in combat and your bear gets snared, just have them activate their ultimate and it'll break them out. And it gives them 8 seconds of immunity. They also increase the health of the bear for 20k to 25k. This is going to make the bear really good for certain things, but it still just doesn't have the survivability in dungeons. Not unless you're running like ice armor with it and it's applying to the bear. So it's like, but it is really cool. I'm glad they did this. I would show you guys what they show underneath, but it's just like blah. Bursting Vines. This is green balance changes. So increase the projectile speed of this morph by 100% and increase the heal of this morph by 10%. Lotus Flower. This ability and force now restore health on partially charged heavy attacks equal to that of normal light attacks. So makes it to where you can use partially charged heavy attacks to heal, but it's going to heal as much as a light attack. Nature's Grass. They increase the range of this ability and its force by 28 to 28 meters up from 22. Secluded Grove. This is a good fix here. Secluded Grove was being overly used in PvP by a large amount of the community, and it was also being used in a large base of PvE as basically the oh crap heal for tanks. They reduce the healing that it does over time by 33%. You don't notice a huge amount of that right away. But they also adjusted the cost from 75 to 90. And really, it's not bad, but yeah, I mean, people are like, oh, it's a nerf. It's not a nerf. It's not going to really phase it. Because it's the initial heal from this is just insane. It's like 10, 12k. And then you got this, like, other, stuff going on. Really good for healers, not so good for tanks anymore. Winner's Embrace Frozen Gate. This is an awesome change. I'm so excited for this. This is going to actually put the Warden tank to have as much utility now as a DK to a certain degree. See, DKs have their damage shields they can apply to all the allies in their group. Wardens can apply the resistance buff to all their allies in their group. And now they have the ability to use like a chains thing with Frozen Gate. Frozen Gate basically puts a circle on the ground and either brings your allies to you or brings the enemies to you. And this thing can be placed in such cool ways. Like I can set this over here, set it over here, and set it over here. And as mobs are walking through the circles, they get sucked right to me. Really, really cool. Now it says here, initial spawning visual effects are now visible to enemies. Yeah, they still don't know avoid it. It's just crazy. Like AI in this game is not that intelligent. But this is a good thing. This is going to make Wardens really good tanks. Now it's not as effective as chains, but it's still a good pull to get enemies to you. Moving on. Animal Companion Betty Netch reduced the intensity of the visual effects from this ability in some morphs. They toned it down a lot, which is really good. When you go stealth now, the beam from the Betty Netch will go invisible. So they fixed the Blue Betty Netch where this morph was not removing a negative effect from you. If you had more than one negative effect on you, it will now remove them. So lots of fixes. I'm not going to go through it all. I'm not going to go through any of this other stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Dark Brotherhood, some changes here. They adjusted the Blade of Woe to further reduce the likelihood of being stuck in nearby objects, which is good. And then the Sea Mages, they fixed those. The Shadow Supplier, also fixed. Yay. Horns of the Reach, just some minor fixes, guys. So just like with the Imperial City and Orsinium. And then Thieves Guild. And now we are into the big changes, because this is where everything gets crazy. Because now we're talking about game and combat balance changes in the actual game. With everything. This is base game changes. Everyone will get this. So in this update, we targeted the least used class abilities and morphs for major improvements, with a goal of being to promote build diversity and creating more interesting choices. Cool. So general, reduce the duration of stuns applied to you when you are knocked off your mount to 2 seconds from 3 seconds. And you will now gain crowd control immunity after the stun expires. Yay, finally! First off, Dragon Knight, Ardent Flame ability, Carterize. Increase the speed of the projectile from this morph by approximately 50%, and the projectile can now target the casting Dragon Knight. This is a heal on the DK. Basically, it gives you both weapon critical or spell critical, one of the two. And as long as it's slotted, and when you activate it, it shoots fireballs out at your allies to heal them, and it will shoot them at you now. This just made my day. Like, when I saw this change in the initial thing, I was like, eh. But this made my day. Because this just made the DK to have a viable heal. And it's a really good heal. It's not as good as like an AoE, circle protection heal or something like that. But it's still a good heal. Draconic Powers, Reflective Scale. They increase the duration of the ability in its morphs to 6 seconds from 4 seconds. Just so it will reflect other shield things that other things have, like the Sword and Wards, Defensive Posture, the or Defensive Stance, the Wardens thingy, I forget what it's called. There's several of them, classes and stuff that have these kind of things. This just adds to it to make it more online with those, which I think is really cool. Earth and Heart, Petrify, this ability and its morphs are no longer 30-second disorients. Instead, they are 2.5-second stuns and cannot be blocked or dodged, and can be placed on multiple targets. We also reduce the cost of this ability and morphs by approximately 23%. The ability and its morphs can no longer be cast on a crowd control immune enemy. That means it will not apply to them at all. And they reduce the range of this ability to 8 meters from 15 meters. They wanted Petrify to be an up-close personal ability. So you have to be up on the enemy in order to cast it. It is no longer a ranged ability and can be cheesed on people in PvP. Now, a lot of people are going to say that a lot of these ability changes are not going to make anything different in the game. For the meta, no. For everyone else, yes. Anyone that's not playing the meta, these changes are good because it makes them more viable for those people. And yeah, people do play outside the meta. A lot of people do. Trust me. Alright, shifting standard. Dragon Knight standard morph. This morph now increases the duration of the standard to 25 seconds, and the standard can be shifted in an unlimited amount of times. Shifting this standard no longer refreshes the duration, and the cost of its morph is now the same as the base ability. So this makes this a good option for those who want to be able to move the banner around and make it useful. For those who want the stationary thing, you still have the other one. It's going to still cost you a crap ton of ultimate. This is going to cost you a little less. And it's not going to give you the same benefits. But still, I think it's a nice change. Nightblade Assassination. This is an awesome change. So the Executioner passive in the Assassination line on the Nightblade, when you used it, it used to be a thing that you have to make a killing blow to get resources back, and it would be over a 6-second period. Now, there's a 2-second window after you do damage to an enemy with an assassination ability. So if I'm using, say, I teleport in on an enemy that's almost dead, and I use Lotus Fan or the other teleport thing, and I get to the enemy, and I apply it to, within 2 seconds of it dying. I will then get Magicka or Stamina based on whatever resource is higher for me. So if I'm playing a magic build or a stamina build, whatever one is higher, I'm going to get that resource back, but it's going to be instantly instead of over 6 seconds, as long as the enemy dies within 2 seconds. It's a nice way to add more resource management to the Nightblade, but also not that good. Like, it's good, but it's not. It's really hard to explain. Like, it's a great thing that they have it, but it's not a great thing because it just doesn't give you enough back. It's kind of like the DK. The DK, you know, when they changed Roar or whatever it is, it doesn't give enough back as it used to. The same thing with the Redguard. Doesn't give enough resources back with its resource management thing. This is kind of the same thing, but it's like, it's there, and you're going to get it. I do like it, though. Grim Focus, the Assassination Will and Assassination, or the Assassin's Will and Assassin's Scourge procs from this ability and its force no longer have a 100 millisecond cast time, but the speed of the projectile has been reduced by approximately 10%. So this basically means you can use Grim Focus more actively, but the projectile is going to move slower. And you really don't notice that 10% reduced speed on the projectile. It's like non-existent. Shadow, Manifestation of Terror. This is the aspect of Terror Morph. This morph now fears up to 6 enemies per trap, up from 2, and the trap no longer triggers if a crowd control immune enemy walks over it. Enemies can also now see an initial projectile marking the trap's location. So, Mass Hysteria, this is the other morph. This morph no longer fears an additional enemy, but only fears the same amount of enemies based as the base ability, too. It continues to inflict minor maim as a morph effect. So this will apply minor maim to all enemies in the area, but it only fears 2. So, really cool. Siphoning, Agony. This was one of the skills in there. And they changed it to called Malevolent Offering. Now it has 2 morphs, Malefic Wraith and Prolonged Suffering. Malefic Wraith, this morph now grants minor mending when it deals damage to you, and has been renamed to Healthy Offering. Prolonged Suffering has been changed to Shrewd Offering, and this morph now decreases the health cost and has been renamed. So, you know, whatever. So this just has a decreased health cost. This has a like a 7k health cost or something, but it applies minor mending to you. It's going to be good for healers in dungeons. I have a build out for it, you know, a Nightblade healer build that uses this, but that was before they put in the change to that resto staff, so it pisses me off that they made that change, but, you know, I can live with it. And this is a really good ability still. It's still going to be a really good ability. I just got to do some more testing with it now. Soul Siphon. They increase the distance an ally can travel away from you before the heal tether snaps to 25 meters, up from 20. Yeah, that's great. That is really great, actually. Alright, moving on. Dark Magic Crystal Blast. So the Crystal Shards morph, they increase the splash damage of this morph by approximately 25%. And Crystal Shards, this ability and the Crystal Fragments morph no longer stun the enemy hit. Crystal Blast morphs can still stun. So this one can stun and gets increased splash damage. This one just does what it always did. It just don't stun anymore. Defensive Ruin and Ruin Prison. These are this is a morph of Ruin Prison. This buff applied by this morph will no longer be consumed when you are attacked by a crowd control immune enemy. And then Ruin Prison, this ability and its morphs are no longer 30-second destroying. They're down to 2.5 seconds. Very similar to the DK ability, the Petrify, but this ability and its morphs can no longer be cast on. Yeah, we knew that. And the ability has been reduced by 25 or 75%. That means, wow. Ruin Cage, this morph now deals damage to the enemy if the stun lasts its full duration. And Defensive Ruin morph continues to place a buff on you that will stun the next enemy that damages you. So really cool there. Templar, Dawn's Wraith, Eclipse. So this ability and its morphs now return damage whenever the affected enemy casts a direct damage attack. it still grants crowd control immunity when the effect ends, and now can now be removed by break free. The eclipse can also be placed on an unlimited amount of enemies as a baseline effect, so you can apply this to as many enemies as you want. Has two morphs, Total Dark and Unstable Core. This morph will heal you when the target casts a dark damage attack, and this morph adds an area of effect damage when the effect ends. So this one just basically explodes, this one heals. Both are really good. Honestly, I tested them both, and I think they're both really good. I like Total Dark on tanks, and Unstable Core is really good for a DPS. So, no, it doesn't add a whole lot of like deep, DPS damage, but it's like you get this new option of ability to use. So, it's kind of neat. Solar Barrage. So this is the Solar Flare morph. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically one that does fire damage. This morph now has a cast time that matches the ability's base ability, and now causes you to pulse point blank area of effect damage every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, with each pulse granting you the Empower buff. This is an insane, like, this is really crazy. This thing is like really powerful. Especially because it's now an AoE around you. So it can be really powerful. It can be really good too. So it's kind of interesting that they did that. Moving on, Restoring Light. Healing Ritual. Reduce the cast time of this ability by 1.2 seconds from 1.5. Honestly, this is just something you're not... It's too little of the millisecond. It's like 0.3 millisecond. You don't even notice the difference. If they were to change it to like 0.8 seconds cast time, or to 0.5 seconds cast time, then I would say yes, this is a good change. But this 1.2 from 1.5, no change. Like, just nothing. And that's my honest opinion, guys. Cleansing Ritual. They increase the cost of this ability in this morph by approximately 14%. So if you guys don't know what Cleansing Ritual is, it's that big AoE ground thing that the Templar casts. It's like a big circle around, and it ticks heals people, that kind of thing. Well, it used to purge conditions from the caster, and people were utilizing this in PvP way too much, and some people were utilizing it way too much in PvE as well to purge conditions without using, and they were just like overcasting it. And since it costs so little as it is, the increased cost is there to do that. Deb's explaining it in this right here, saying pretty much what I did. Alright, so now we are going into the weapon skills changes. One-handed sword and shield. The shield wall, they increase the ability in its morphs by 135 from 100. This is good. Okay, first off, this is good. They increase the cost. Makes it a non-spammable. But with Ultimate Gen as being as effective as it is right now, it doesn't change the factor of people are still going to be spamming this in PvP, and tanks are still going to be overutilizing it in PvE because it's a really fast ultimate. And especially in dungeons, like, I can spam this all day long because it doesn't take long to get 100 ultimate. So it's nice that they made the change, but honestly, what they should have done was changed the mechanic of the shield wall, not change the ultimate cost. Alright, Bow, Acid Spray. Increase the damage over time of this morph by approximately 65%. Now, when I saw this change in the PTS, it was a lot less. They increased it by a greater margin, which might put Acid Spray or Arrow Spray on par with almost Poison Injection in damage, but I haven't tested it yet. But it is kind of a nice change. I'm just going to say it right now. That's nice. They also increased the duration of the damage over time applied by this to 6 seconds up from 5, so it'll tick for an extra thing of damage. And then Arrow Spray, they increased the duration of the snare applied by this morph to 6 seconds from 5 seconds. And then Scatter Shot. This ability and morphs no longer apply a 5-second disorientate when hit. Instead, they stun for 1.5 seconds. Which is kind of cool. Destruction Staff, Elemental Storm. They reduce the damage of this ability in the Eye of the Storm morph by approximately 12%. The damage of on an Elemental Rage morph remains unchanged. Here's the thing. 12% is like nothing on this ability. It's nice that they made the change, but it doesn't change its use. It's still going to get overused. Just saying. Alright, moving on. Panacea. Increase the cost of this ability and source to 125 from 100, and that's because overused in PvP. You won't notice this too much in PvE because getting 125 ultimate takes no time. Alright. Light armor changes, medium armor changes, heavy armor changes. Basically, all the passive skills, or all the active skills in the armor lines, have been changed to where they require that armor type of 5 pieces. So, like annulment, which is the light armor damage shield, now takes 5 pieces of light armor. The medium armor evasion takes 5 pieces of medium armor. The heavy armor immovable takes 5 pieces of heavy armor in order to have them even used. This is a great change, not only for PvP, but also for PvE, because it does make sense that these abilities be tied to their gear. Like, you have to wear 5 pieces in order to get use out of them. That makes a lot of sense. Is this going to hurt anything in the game? Yeah, it's going to hurt a lot of people, but you know what? It's the way the game should have been in the first place. And that's my honest opinion. I don't like some of like immovable's great for tanks, but at the same time it's like super expensive. They did reduce the cost of it by 5%, but really that's not enough. They increased the duration of the ability to 20 seconds from 13.5 at rank 4. That's good. They casting the ability in its morphs now require you to wear 5 heavy. That's good. But these like this right here, this should have been a 10% reduced cost or 15% reduced cost, because it's such a high costing ability. It's just crazy. Like, why would I use this instead of this? But I do have a build that uses it now, or will on live. So because what it offers is so much better than something else. All right, Wraith. This is the heavy armor passive, by the way. This passive has been replaced with Revitalize passive, which increases the resource of heavy attacks restored from 12 to 25%. If you guys don't know, Rapid Mending used to have 2 passives in it. It had this thing right here with the heavy attacks like how much it restores, and healing received. And they just split it in half and created 2 of them. And they removed Wrath from the game entirely. Wrath used to give you 200 weapon or spell damage, or 200 weapon and spell damage, but you had to be like hit 30 times to get it. It was like some absurd amount to get 20 stacks. But they removed that because they want heavy armor to be more focused on the heavy armors for survivability, medium armors for like stamina builds, and light armors for magica builds. But I still don't understand. Like, it's a good change. So don't get me wrong, good change. But what I don't understand is why make these changes to armor and stuff like this when it's not going to change its use. Like, people are still going to overutilize it in PvP. And they said that they wanted to make heavy armor more about survivability, and that's great. But here's the thing: all armors should be based on survivability. Like, medium armor, in my opinion, just saying it, and I'm gonna be very clear. Medium armor should be about that armor type. It shouldn't be about increasing your weapon damage and your crit. Like, it's medium armor. Like, I can understand the armor bonuses having that, but the passives, no. Just like light armor shouldn't have passives that increase the damage of magic stuff. It should give you bonuses to, like, oh, we're going to increase your spell resistance wearing light armor, and with medium armor we're going to give you, like, increased survivability through dodging, stealthing, that kind of stuff. That makes sense. But the other stuff doesn't. It's just like heavy armor. Heavy armor is all about the benefit of wearing heavy armor. Like medium armor, if they even put a thing on there that gave you stamina, like increased by 10%, I'd be fine. If they did that with light armor, I'd be fine. But they didn't. They made them geared strictly to the purpose of damage. And I'm sorry to say it, but that was a big mistake. That's where the problem lies right now with PvE, is we don't have the freedom to choose how we really want to play our characters. Like, why can't I be a medium armor healer if I choose so? Why can't I be a medium armor tank if I choose so? Well, I can't, because the benefits of that armor are geared towards DPS. And I'm sorry to say it, but that's just bull. And that's my opinion. They want build diversity. They even stated it above there. We're trying to create more build diversity. Limiting the use of armor to specifics creates no build diversity. It forces people to play by specific standards. Now, I'm not saying that it's the choices they have in the light armor and medium armor are bad, like the passives. I'm just saying that if you're going to force people to play by specifics, like, oh, we're going to make heavy armor all about tanking and survivability, then you know what you need to do? You need to decide now. What do you want the game to be? The Trinity, like World of Warcraft, or do you want it to be a game like you designed in the beginning where it's open-ended and people are free-form to play how they want? Because the way you're forcing players down this path, right now you're forcing them into a more hard-locked Trinity than what we had before. I mean, eventually you're going to get to the point where once you do all this stuff, what are you going to do? Incorporate it into the fact that, hey, when you choose a role, you can only wear heavy armor as a tank? Like, you choose your role in the beginning and that forces you to play by specific things? Because if it ever got that far, I can promise you a lot of people would quit the game. And if they didn't, hey, that's on them to deal with that responsibility. I would be gone in a heartbeat, personally, because I already played that. I already did that. And there's other games out there that do it better. No offense to ESO, I think it's a great game, but there's other games out there that have been doing it for years and are doing it better than this. This game's got a 3-year, like, going on 4 years or something like that, and, you know, or 3 years. But there's games that have been out for 10 years, 20 years, that offer more, like, they offer that kind of gameplay. I don't need that kind of gameplay. That's why I came to this game. I want that build diversity. Let's have build diversity. Let's incorporate build diversity in the game. Now, like I said, guys, this is all my opinion, and even though I like using light armor on a Magicka character, and I like using medium armor on stamina characters, I think that the game needs more variety. And the passives that these create in them do not allow for build diversity. It limits build diversity. Like forcing people to play under medium armor, but having medium armor sets that are geared towards tanking is stupid. Having light armor sets that are geared towards tanking or survivability, like the gear set itself is geared towards survivability, is stupid when you can't use the armor type for that purpose because it's designed for damage dealing. It's not designed for how it gives you survivability. It's designed for damage dealing. And see, this is where this right here is bad. This system right here is bad. And that's it. That's my honest opinion, guys. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys can argue with me all you want, but that's just my opinion. I still play by the rules of the game's design. Is it going to make me quit the game? No. The only thing that would make me quit this game, honestly, is if they put an enforced system where we had to play by specifics. Like, the more they force specifics, the more likely I am to leave the game. But the more specifics they require, the more it pushes me away from the game. And that's the truth. I came here because it's a diverse game. It allows for a lot of build diversity. I want more build diversity, not less. Alright, champion system, the Tower Siphoner passive. This one had gone through a overhaul. The champion passive now reduces all resources restored, restore effects on enemies. This includes potions, item sets, and ability passives. You guys hear that loud noise in the background? That's my furnace. It's like literally, I mean, I can spit on the thing. It's like right outside my bedroom door. It's annoying as hell. Like, whoever designed this house, like, was stupid. They put it right outside the bedroom door. It's just and it's hard to sleep at night. So, combat fixes and improvements. They did make some fixes to a lot of the skills and stuff. They fixed an issue with the rank 1 of this ability of Draconic Dark Talons. They did a lot of good fixes. I'm not going to lie. A lot of these fixes are good. I'm glad that they put them in here and things like that. But this is the one that pisses me off. The damage dealt by this passive ability no longer double dips. Okay, that I can understand. And will no longer critical strike. This is an ability. This isn't a gear set. You just removed one of the most important things about this ability. And that is that it hits multiple targets and have the chance to crit. Now it doesn't crit. You just made two-handed like the most useless item for PvE again. Like, when it comes to in-game, people will not allow people to have two-handed in there now because of that one thing. Like, it just diminished its use. They created this really cool cleave ability for two-handed. Now they're taking that cool cleave ability away by making it only do damage, normal damage, to the other enemy's hit, but still crit on the main enemy hit. It's just, like, that's an ability. That's a passive thing built into the weapon skill. I can understand if this was a proc set, but this is... oh man, that's a dumb change. That's just my opinion. I know people will be like, well, yeah, but you know what? I can complain. I'm just like anybody else. That's just a stupid change in my opinion. Alright, some of these other changes is really interesting, I guess. You know, they fixed the issue where Purge buff applied by this ability and its morphs that reduced the duration of negative effects could stack. They fixed that. Itemization set changes. This is mostly on the Master Maelstrom changes, and they go into explaining like why they made these changes. So Master and Maelstrom used to be really special sets that had like extra weapon damage, extra stamina, extra magicka, and then they had like their own set bonus to it. But you couldn't change that because if you put an enchantment in there, it removed that because it was treated as an enchantment. Now it's being treated as a set, but that bonus stat, like the bonus stamina, the bonus magicka, the bonus weapon or spell damage, is gone. They removed that. Now it's considered a set bonus. So these have been changed to sets, which is perfect in my opinion. Dragonstar and Maelstrom Arenas will now also drop additional rewards from the Healer's Habit, Archer's Mind, Footman's Fortune, and Destruction Mastery. They will now drop at the end of the thing, along with the Maelstrom Arena will now drop Glorious Defender, Hunt Leader, Parabellum, Permafrost, and Winterborn item sets. They will drop weapons at the end as well as the Master and Maelstrom weapons. So Master and Maelstrom also have the same requirements. You have to have a one-handed sword and shield or dual wield. You have to have them together. If you don't have these, by the way, if you don't have the sword and shield from these sets, the Master and Maelstrom, they will send you a shield in the mail. If you just have the one-handed sword from the sword and shield, they will send you the shield in the mail. That is stated right here, will be mailed to you for each one-handed weapon currently possessed. Alright, moving on. Many of the Master and Maelstrom item sets have undergone significant rebalancing. Titanic Cleave, the two-handed master weapon, this item set's proc now increases the direct damage of Cleave by 1,500 for each enemy in its cone up to a maximum of 9,000 damage. So you'll be able to do up to 9,000 damage from the Cleave ability, like 9,000 more damage. So it's insane. Like I've seen this, like tested it, and had it hit up to 20k. It's just gross. All right, Puncturing Remedy, but the mobs on Titanic Cleave, just to let you know, they have to be packed up pretty good. Puncturing Remedy, Master, one-handed sword and shield, increase the heal amount of puncture to 2,500 from 2,150. And it now grants you spell and physical resistance equal to the amount healed. Now, just to let you know, if you have healing effectiveness on your character and healing received, whatever the heal is for, you get that much in resistance values. And it lasts for 3 seconds. So it's a nice, like, oh, I got this enemy coming at me and my resistance buff is off. I'm going to taunt him instead. Bam. So you taunt them, you know, you stab them, get healed. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have resistances. So it's kind of a nice like, oh crap kind of thing. And I loved messing with it on PTS. I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm not gonna lie, I want to get it for a couple of my tanks. All right, Stinging Slashes, dual wield. This is the Master Dual Wield. Increase the damage of the Twin Slashes Bleed to 1,500 each tick from 516. Now, that's a 200% increase almost, guys. 200% more damage than what it did before. A lot of people are like, oh, well, it's not a whole lot. You know, it just does. No, this set is absurd. Like, it does a lot of damage, and it's not considered a proc set. This is like a boost to your skill. So the nice thing about this is that with Twin Slashes, when you do it with this set, you're like, the damage it does is insane. It's like double, like triple what it did before. It triples the bleed that you have, basically, or doubles the bleed you have. So it's like, and it can't make it crit. But if it does crit, it still gets the 1,500 extra damage. It's disgusting, like how much damage you can get out of that. Destructive Impact, they increase the damage bonus from and this is a Master Destro, to Destructive Touch direct damage to 2,000 from 516. So this used to do, like when you do Destructive Touch, it used to do, just 516 extra damage. Now it does 2,000 more damage. They also increased the cost reduction of Destructive Touch to 30% from 12%. Now, it's not going to make Destructive Touch, like this Destructive Staff, like, oh my god, I got to go get it. But it does make it a useful item for some builds who want, people who want to use it for their build. It's a really cool thing, too. I mean, that's just crazy. All right, moving on. Maelstrom One-Handed Sword Board. This is the Rampaging Slash enchant, or not enchant, but the set. Your low slash will now cause your next fully charged heavy attack used within 5 seconds to restore an additional 2,000 magicka and stamina. It doesn't matter what your pool is, main. You get 2,000 magicka and stamina. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Like, this is head shaking. Like, oh my god, because it is OP. But here's the thing: if you're a stamina build, the magic is nice because you do use some magic abilities on most tank builds. But you're still going to burn through a lot of stamina. And I'm not going to lie, guys. You do still burn through stamina tanking. But it just gives you an easier way to maintain your resource pools. But you still need good stamina, like resource management. Merciless Charge. This is the two-handed Maelstrom one. But yeah, about Rampaging Slash. It's good, but it's not great. I like it. It works for me. So I'm going to leave it at that. Merciless Charge. This two-handed Maelstrom weapon. Increase the damage done by this item set's proc to 6,000 damage over 5 seconds. Up from 4,300 damage over 5 seconds. Now, I know a lot of people are like, but this sucks because they took away the item damage. They did. But by what they did here, making up that difference of 4,300 to the 6,000, that's to cover the loss. I know it sucks, but I've tested this, and honestly, for PvP purposes, it's amazing. For PvE, not so much because we don't use Merciless Charge. We don't use any of the charge abilities from two-handed. But it is pretty amazing. Precise Regeneration. This is the Maelstrom Restro. They increase the amount of magicka restored by regeneration critical heals to 800 from 481. Now, that's a huge change. Like, that's a 100% increase almost, and you feel it. So that's a nice change. Clever Alchemist. This item set's proc now requires that you are in combat for it to function. So, I guess they had a lot of people like misusing it in PvP. Shadow of the Red Mountain. This item set's proc can no longer target neutral monsters or monsters you are not in combat with. That's a good change. Thank you for fixing that. And moving on, they did some more itemization improvements, like the Defiler set. The monster summoned by this item set now spawns next to the enemy you critically hit instead of spawning next to you. Yay, they need to do that with the bear on Celine's. Engine Guardian. The beam cast by the Dwemer Sphere summoned from this item set will now be hidden while the character is sneaking or invisible. Earthgore. This item set's proc can now display friendly telegraphs to your allies. They did do some other things up here, like fixed issue where the reduction to weapon and spell damage applied for the weakening chant was being treated as a buff instead of a debuff, so it was buffing their weapon damage. The fire weapon enchant were being displayed here. So, yeah. And then, of course, there's some other fixes. Celine's, they fixed the telegraph. Sword Singers, they fixed this item set. Well, now, was not modifying momentum. Now it affects momentum. You know, just a lot of crazy things. And we're going to go on down past all this stuff, guys, because this is just armor and, like graphic fixes. But we're going to go on down here to the next major thing, which is the dungeon group content. So they adjusted the minimum level to the following normal difficulty dungeons to level 45. So you have to be at level 45 to do these dungeons on normal, period. So all DLC dungeons have been adjusted to 45, and also all Path 2 dungeons have been adjusted to require 45. This is a great change. The next one, why they didn't do all these same dungeons there as well makes absolutely no sense. Because it's like, okay, we want all Path 2 and Vet or DLC dungeons to be considered difficult dungeons. So we're going to move the difficulty of when you can enter them to 45. But we're going to do this also with part of them and only two of the... Look, okay, first off, great change here. I like this change. This one I don't care for. They adjusted that you have, like, veteran difficulty dungeons on the Path 2 of City of Ash and Crypts of Hearts. And all the DLC dungeons are adjusted to CP 160 requirements. Okay, that's cool. But why didn't you incorporate all the Path 2 ones? Because this right here is not that difficult. Like, why people make this out to be like the hardest dungeon in the game? It's longer than hell. That's it. It takes a long time to complete because they made it longer. The veteran Crypt of Hearts, they did the same thing. It's just a little bit longer and more annoying because that final boss and how you get him to spawn, go into hard mode. That is it. Like these shouldn't be here if you're not going to incorporate the rest of the Path 2. Like, this was just it's a great idea. Stupid implementation. And hands down, stupid. It's not dumb. It's just stupid. Like, if you're going to make one or two of them this, you should make all of them this. Because it makes more sense. It makes more viable sense that all Path 2 dungeons require CP 160. Otherwise, make Banished Cells 2, Darkshade Caverns 2, Elden Hollow 2, Fungal Grotto 2, Spindle Clutch 2, and Wayward Sewers 2 not require any freaking level requirements. I mean, it's like, oh, we're going to put level requirements to these because they're really hard. They're not really hard. That's the thing. They're no harder than the dungeons that came before them. Like, the Fungal Grotto 2 is not much harder than Fungal Grotto 1. Just a new boss. 2 new bosses, actually. Like, 2 more bosses than what we had in Fungal Grotto 1. And they're new. All the bosses are new in there anyways. But the mechanics to those bosses aren't that challenging. Spindle Clutch 2 is probably by far one of the easiest dungeons in the game. Here it is, sitting in the list. Elden Hollow 2, another easy mode dungeon. Banished Cells 2, not so easy on one boss, but the rest of it's easy. Just like Fungal Grotto 2 has a really hard boss in the middle. The rest of the bosses are a joke. Darkshade Caverns 2. The only thing in this that's hard is the wave of enemies you fight right before you go in and fight the Engine Guardian. The rest of it's easy mode. Like, literally, like, I don't get this. Like I said, City of Ash 2 is not hard. It really isn't. It's just so long and tedious that it seems hard. It's like the longest dungeon in the game. It literally takes about an hour on a normal group to complete it. On a pug group, you're still looking at about an hour. On a good, really good put together group, you're looking at about 30 minutes. Average. And that's because it's just really long and annoying. But it's a really good dungeon. I mean, it's a really well put together dungeon. It's got great design, great layout, great structure, everything. I mean, City of Ash 2, in my opinion, is way better than Falkreath Hold. Falkreath Hold's fun, but it's tedious. It's tedious because it's just long. Crypt of Shadows, or Cradle of Shadows, same thing. It's long. It's tedious. Bandaged Shells, like Bloodroot Forge, isn't too long. It's got that right pace. It's got the right mechanics, for being a good dungeon. It's like Imperial City Prison. Really long, tedious. White Gold Tower, good. It's like every dungeon, they have one that has to be long, like super long, and then one that's really like good. Like Vaults of Madness. It's got its lengthiness to it, but it's not tedious. It's just long, and it's got a good amount of enemies to that. It's not like Ruins of Mazatoon, where it's like they compact all these enemies in these areas and have like the horde fight in the middle of the dungeon, which was just like they had like 3 horde fights, which was really annoying. And if you guys don't know what a horde fight is, it's basically like waves of mobs. And like Ruins of Mazatoon is a great dungeon, but they need to take out certain elements of it, like the puzzle room. If you don't complete the puzzle, then have mobs come out. But if you complete the puzzle, figure out the puzzle in that room, no mobs come out. Like, you freed the people. But instead, they send waves of mobs at you no matter what. And then in the other chamber where you go in and the guy's like, and then he passes out or whatever, and you have to fight like waves upon waves of mobs. That's just annoying. That's stupid design. There should have been a boss in that room, that big room, and there should have been in the puzzle room, just the puzzle. And if you failed and the person died, that's part of the dungeon. They just die. No mobs spawn or anything. That's just part of the dungeon's mechanic. That would have been cool, but they made it stupid. And I think that's where a lot of the dungeons, some dungeons are really good, some dungeons are really bad. But this separation, this is a good change, but they should have had all these dungeons that were here also down here. And that's just my opinion. Because it makes no sense to separate the Path 2 dungeons just because they're easier. I mean, Cradle of Shadows or Crypt of Hearts 2 isn't that hard. It's actually easier than the first one. It's just the boss at the end trying to figure out how to get the hard mode started. It can be a pain. But yeah, I do like these changes. Thank you for making them. But that's my opinion on it. This should have been adjusted to both. The 45, you have Path 2 and the DLC dungeons. At 160, you have Path 2 and DLC dungeons for vet mode. Alright, I get it. That's cool. In all other dungeons, you get normal at 10 and vet mode at 45. That works. But no, they did this really just cheesy thing. And the funny thing is that all the dungeons stop at CP 160 because there's no gear higher than CP 160. Now, I have a question to the devs. Are you going to do this for Trials too? Are you guys going to incorporate this level requirement for Trials? Because right now there is no level requirement. You can go into Trials at level 1. And let me tell you, I've tried to put together groups and seen level 10s join my group for normal Trials. I've seen level 15s join my group for normal Trials and kicked them immediately. Because Trials should have the same thing. Like normal Trials 45, CP 160 for vet Trials. Because that makes sense. Now you're putting a requirement to those which makes sense. Like saying, hey, you know what? Trials are difficult content. We want it to be challenging group content for large groups. We're going to put a requiring cap of 45, and we're going to do the same thing with the vet versions at CP 160. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much all the changes that are coming in. Oh wait, there is one more change. Just to let you guys know, every weekend in Cyrodiil, there's a gold vendor who shows up who sells gold jewelry. They are changing this. The Overland sets are they're going to be doing Overland and Dungeon sets now, and he will be selling 2 jewelry sets each weekend. And will be from Dungeon and Overland. There will be 2 Overland sets and 2 Dungeon sets. So he'll be selling a total of 4 Dungeon or sets in jewelry every weekend. And these are the prices. This is the information. I'm excited for this because this opens up a lot more for easier gearing for gold jewelry. So yeah, this is really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I'm excited for these changes. And I really need to get into the DLC because it's 8:04 in the morning. The DLC's been active for like 2 hours, almost 3. So I'm excited to get in and start the DLC. So, but yeah, that's it for the video, guys. That's it for pretty much everything else. I mean, there is some other changes in here. They adjusted the water feature near the entrance. Like fixes. There's UI stuff. There is some gamepad mode stuff for PC. Got some changes. A lot of it's really good, I think. Yeah, but pretty much that's it. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can hit the subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Yeah. Sorry, I went brain fart really quick. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy will see you all later. Bye.